Thank you everyone for staying just to hear out a few tips and suggestions to add to that list of things to go forwards. It's been a great 4 days. Have you enjoyed yourselves? It's carrying on for another day, and I hope many more days into the future. It's certainly been informative. I've just been almost overwhelmed by the quality of the content, and I'd really like to thank all those people who've helped and contributed to that. We have challenged, I think, Hong Kong as much as inspired it, I hope, and that list of ideas that's already starting to rack up on that board, I think, leaves Hong Kong richer, but also I think all of us internationally, I think, richer to understand and experience this really quite amazing and quite special and certainly unique city here in Hong Kong. I've got a few things, just 5 things that I wanted to share with you as sort of outcomes that I felt are opportunities as much as anything. But before I share those with you, I wanted to particularly acknowledge the support that we've had, because it's been a really quite fantastic an extraordinary partnership with Civic Exchange, with Maura, Simon and the entire team, which I think is from the board all the way through to the volunteers you've seen in the black t-shirts running around. They are quite an extraordinary group of people who certainly are combined with a collective passion, a focus and a commitment, not only to do the right thing, but to do the thing really well, I think, here in Hong Kong. And I've just been so pleased, and it's been such a privilege to work with them. Can we just thank Civic Exchange? I know we wouldn't be here in Asia without you, but I don't think we would feel so excited about the future in Hong Kong either without you. But I'm determined not to make you feel as though you're entirely responsible for its future. I just worried the whole week was disappearing as people were writing up the list. So here's my quick 5 thoughts about the conclusions of the things we've heard. We know that walking is that best indicator of livability, and the question that everyone's asked, and Maura asked it of the secretaries, is Hong Kong walkable? It's the sort of thing that everybody wants to know, and everybody's desperate for the answer. It is a great question, and it is subtly different from the more obvious one that Esther particularly has helped us with, about whether does Hong Kong walk? And I think this is often the real issue for Asia especially, but really for all of us around the world, is that there is that relationship between the fact that people are walking doesn't necessarily mean that it is walkable. And the question that really came to light, or the statement really that was reminded us, came from Chen Yu Chong, who was visually impaired, who came and joined our conference earlier in the week. And he wasn't so, he didn't really need to know the numbers. He didn't need to understand that it was 90% of public transport trips. What he really wanted to understand was, first, we have to claim the right to walk before we then think about whether the facilities, which need to then come later. And I think the question for me is do people in Hong Kong feel that they have that right to walk? And perhaps this is the clearer, easier thing to understand, more than just that relationship between the activity itself and the environment and the quality of that experience. And to me, as a visitor to Hong Kong, I must say that walking experience has been pretty counterintuitive. I'm a geography student, and so I like to understand where north is, where the river is. I like to truly understand how to navigate things, and to me, a lot of my time walking in Hong Kong feels quite illogical. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I like getting lost in cities, and in fact there's a whole organisation who encourages people to get lost in Hong Kong, so that you can discover some of the best parts are when you do get lost. But to me, it doesn't quite work, and yet somehow or other it scores 70 out of 100 according to the Indian Walkability Index for walkable places, and somehow or other, a bit like moving water, when you sort of stop it from going down one way and put a bridge on another and put a causeway up, it works. People find another way, and with 7 million people, they have found a way, and somehow it works. I was reminded of a previous conference we had in Munich, where the mayor was very proud of the fact that they were a city, because of public and private partnerships, where they called themselves a city of shortcuts. And to me, I thought this place is full of those sorts of experience. They've got those developer relationships, and yet we seem to be a city of long cuts. And I think if, as we heard from Ben Char, one of the developers, who seemed to be one of the good guys, but even he was saying, we're good at efficiency about using up space, but don't trust us to get it right on our own. And I thought that was very honest of him, that the opportunity here, and this is the challenge I think we need to set, is to continue those partnerships that have been made here at the conference. The relationship between community, with experts, with government, with developers, which I think have been so expertly brought together here by Civic Exchange and all of you who've stayed through. But to keep clarifying that right, as much as auditing and investing and improving in on the detail. The second point is one about space. Because the thing we keep hearing more than anything here in Hong Kong is how valuable that is. In previous conferences, people have wrapped up this whole story around the need for compact, green, connected cities. And in many ways, you'd imagine that we've got that compactness, that greenness, that connectedness here. So have we got success? We've heard from developers especially just how valuable a square metre of land here is in Hong Kong, and yet I know from studies in London that 80% of the public space that is available in London, once they really measured it, ended up being their roads. And I just wonder what the percentage is here of the public space. If you were to think of these streets really as public space, I suspect we're well over 50% of the public space here in Hong Kong. And when the value of that public space is so much, I wonder whether we're being really as effective with it as we should be. It was a real privilege to have an insight into the new global street design guidance, and to have shared with us the new assessment tools, measurement standards has been described again today, to help understand not only what's there, but how it's working and what to do better. I think the opportunity, therefore, in Hong Kong is to take maybe that inspiration from Stockholm that we heard about. It's quite a challenge, but they've been using it as their guiding principles to double the space for walkers and half the space for cars. And I think if we were to do that here in Hong Kong, I think we must remember the advice we got from Rocco Yim to make sure that that space that we create is spiritually rewarding. I'm sure we can do that. The third point is about the relationship, that essential relationship with public transport. The MTR backbone concept here that totally underpins the movement in Hong Kong is certainly key to the success and the vibrancy of the city. But it's not just the efficiency of the service, which I've been to public transport conferences and heard Hong Kong story about how many minutes late any of their trains are at anywhere in the world. And they've got something like 99.9%, which is really annoying, I know, to the Singapore MTR service, who only get 99.8%. But it's not just about that efficiency. What we've learned, and I just didn't know this before, but the MTR have this responsibility for proximity, for the demand, and for quality, that whole context around their stations. And David Tang shared with us something he called the value capture system. Housing, corridors, parks, access, and together his responsibility and that collectiveness actually does create community. And as we heard from Christine, from Esther, so many people, that we know that when we invest in that coordinated delivery, the impact on people's lives and the quality of the experience that they get really does make things better. And so that opportunity, surely here in Hong Kong, is not just to promote the MTR, but to reframe the way that it's presented as a movement model for the way that the city works. And I think we must make sure that we put walking and riding as an essential part of the way that this success is happening in this city. The fourth, and I said I've only got 5, but the fourth point is about being symbolic change. Over the days we've heard city after city give examples of change that have helped cities step ahead. People like Krakow, who've tackled pavement parking. People like Guangzhou, who've built green corridors. People like Seoul, who've taken down highways right through the middle of their city. Singapore, Iloilo. We've heard again and again examples of courageous people who haven't always had the community on board with them first in order to expand their vision and give it a go. And not just when they've done those things have those things been accepted, but they've been celebrated and they've been valued. And I observed that the language is changing here. What we used to talk about sustainable tactical urbanism is now getting a shorthand and a translation and being used by people like the Mayor of Paris, who shared their vision for us about a calm and welcoming city. And it strikes me that calm feels a very long way away from what Hong Kong is about. But welcoming, certainly, and there is something in being able to get this shorthand right. The opportunity then, surely in Hong Kong, for some symbolic projects that could really demonstrate that commitment to really making that change. Feels like we've had showcased these walk-ready schemes, the Devo Road Central, the Harbour Loop, the Very Hong Kong, the I Discover Walks, you know, some of those innovative winners from last night who really showed just how much is bubbling under the surface here in Hong Kong that could be made mainstream. It's an absolute given that people will enjoy these and say thank you for it, if only people could be encouraged to let it happen. And so I hope that we can put the life back into the dead spaces, put our feet back on the ground here in Hong Kong, and get your toes wet every now and then as well. And my last point is a personal one, to make sure that this is not about a continued story to ask what Hong Kong Civic Exchange can do for you, but what you can do for Civic Exchange. You guys, you're already doing too much. I know the times of day that you send us emails, and we cannot give them yet more to do. We have to take joint responsibility for this. I like Daniel's comment that we've heard again here today, that walking happens best when hearts are one. That's the emotional side that we were just mentioning, and are backed up with our minds are one as well with the facts. I really took heart in the very simple numbers that 50% of car trips are under 5 kilometers. And globally, this is Hong Kong's story, it's Asia's story, it's all of our story, that beyond the strategic talk about walkability, about space, about MTR partnerships, it is an opportunity for us all to take up the challenge and to step up to actually take 2 of our trips less per week to walk instead of driving the car. And if we did that, that's 2 trips less per week each. Then within 2 years, we could reverse what we've done to our cities, what we've done to ourselves over the last 40 years. Because that accumulated negativity has had an impact from our car dependency on our air, our bodies, and our happiness, and certainly on our cities. But let's not get distracted, because I see the sort of temporary shorthand hopes that we've had presented to us like electric cars. All that gives us is clean congestion. It's still congestion. But if Formula E can shut this street here and capture the imagination of Hong Kong to accept that we can shut a couple of kilometres of roadway here down at the harbour, surely, this is the time that we can, within the next 2 years, by giving up those 2 journeys each, how we can collectively generate sufficient appetite here in Hong Kong to open up Devo Road finally, and open up the harbour. And make sure that we don't get left with what Superior called us, those stranded assets. So thank you for inviting us to be part of your journey. Thank you for keeping us in touch. We hope that this is just the beginning of helping make Hong Kong more walkable, and as the Secretary says, adding more life into our everydays. Thank you.